If you're thinking of buying a property in South Florida, there are some things that you need to know before you make that purchase. I think owning a property in Florida is amazing, but you need to know what you're getting into and what maintenance could look like and what certain areas can do to your property. So this is just for you to have and so you're ready when you buy a property. So we do have certain nature events that happen in this area. The first one I want to mention is flooding. It is very real. It does rain a lot here. It could happen and it has happened in certain areas. Some areas do not have the right systems to drain the rainwater, so therefore they end up having floodings. Of course, this happens a lot more in cities, like in Fort Lauderdale it has been really bad, but even in other areas you might also find flooding. It's really important for you to check if the property you're looking into is in a flood zone or if there has been any history of it. Make sure that if you are looking into a property, you are able to find where the water would go close to that property so that you know that it does have a good water retention system or a proper drain for it to go. And then of course, on top of flooding, we do have hurricanes. We get also pretty strong storms during summer. So having a property that's going to have accordion shutters, impact windows or panels, any sort of storm protection is really important. And if it doesn't have it, I would highly suggest putting that into your budget for the property, because it is a lot easier to just have that done than having to really scramble when there is a hurricane about to hit. You don't want to deal with that. So having that protection will be a lot easier when the time comes. So due to this risk of hurricanes and flooding, insurance costs tend to be a little higher for properties in Florida. It could be more significant than other regions, and I would highly encourage having insurance against hurricanes, against flooding if you're able to get that. It is also sometimes difficult for certain properties to get insured, so you do have to look into, is the property really old? Is the roof really old? When has it last been replaced? If you do have a roof that is older than 20 years or sometimes even less, it may not even be able to be insurable, which is not good for you. If the electric panel is on a blacklist because it's had issues with starting fires or things of that sort, that also will not be insurable. So you have to look into these things. If your property is in a flood zone, you will need flood insurance, which tends to be more expensive. So if you can avoid buying in a flood area, of course, that is highly recommended. But if that's where you want to be, just take that into account. Next thing I wanted to mention is to always get an inspection done. Specifically in Florida, we tend to deal with a lot of humidity, which can cause mold. It could be a big issue here. If you just want to be extra safe, I do suggest doing a mold inspection. Better safe than sorry. The area that's affected by mold or humidity or a leak has to be fully removed, done again, and then on top of that, you can also spray chemicals that are for mold, and usually you're able to treat it this way. So you have to keep your property in the optimal maintenance to avoid mold, to avoid any issues that could come with a lot of rain and humidity. So South Florida property taxes are going to be higher than in other states. Just in general, there is a homestead exception available in Florida. You have to look into the requirements to see if you qualify for it. It usually has to be your primary residence, and it does help out when paying taxes. So if you're buying a property that you plan on living in, make sure to look into the homestead exemption. And hey, we do have higher property taxes, but we also don't have that state income tax, so I guess it helps in a sense. We do have a lot of homeowner associations, condominium associations. There's also a lot of country clubs that need memberships. There are 55 plus communities in this area. Please check all of the rules and regulations. Sometimes they're very strict about certain things. Some associations also have restrictions for renting. They can have restrictions for pets. So just make sure to read it and be very careful about the association itself. It's happened with people that have bought a property for an investment to rent it out, and then they didn't check and they don't allow rentals until a year after ownership or 2 years after ownership, and you just don't want that happening to you. There's a lot of new construction going on here. Even though it's new, it doesn't always mean that it is going to be the best quality that exists. I have seen that a lot of these builders lately, they are just trying to get houses done and the quality is just not the same or not as good. And I've seen problems arise shortly after the purchase of a new construction property, which is super frustrating because of course, when you're buying something new, you're counting on that property to not give you any issues for a while. But one thing I do recommend if you are buying new construction is something that the builder will not like, but it will benefit you, and that is to do an inspection on the property. I do find that older homes tend to be built with better quality, but of course, because they're old, they might not be up to date with certain building codes or safety codes or things of that kind. So if you are buying an older home, just make sure that they are complying with all of the most up-to-date codes and safety regulations. Also, be aware of the types of materials the home is built. And last but not least, I want you to know about crime and just population in general. Always check your crime areas. You might find a property that looks beautiful, renovated, just perfect. But if you're not familiar with the areas, you may not know if it is in the right side of town. Overall crime here is not bad. It is actually nowhere near the list of, the worst states regarding crime. But of course, every city, everywhere will have areas that are more prone to crime, and you definitely want to avoid those. There are maps that will show you the crime areas, where it is worse and where it is better. So I would always double check that map before you buy any property. I hope this was useful. If you do have any questions or something I didn't cover, or you just want to reach out to me, all my information is going to be down below. And of course, if you did find this helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know that it did help you out. And other than that, I will see you next video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!